Spyro Enter the Dragonfly is the single most reviled game in the Spyro series, and yet these guys had the audacity to put the words Player's Choice at the top of the box. This just goes to show that things like Player's Choice, Game of the Year 2015, and 100% on Rotten Tomatoes are all completely meaningless terms. This was actually the first Spyro game that I had ever played in my life. I was very little when I first played it, and I did not remember much. Otherwise, the series as a whole is one that I don't have any nostalgic connection to at all. It's a series of platformers that started on the PS1, and from what I understand, they're mostly well-liked games. If Crash Bandicoot was the PlayStation's Mario 64, then I guess these were like their Banjo-Kazooie. Of course, both Crash and Spyro would end up being multiplats, and Enter the Dragonfly would show up on both GameCube and PS2. There were plans to put it on Xbox and PC, but they decided against it because it sucked. No, really, that's the reason. I first played this game when I was like 7 or 8, and I don't remember a whole lot. The only thing I do remember is accidentally discovering a game-breaking glitch that let me reach the final boss and beat the game without doing anything else. I remember feeling so good about myself, that is, until I found out that the speedrunning community already discovered it. But just the fact that my baby 9, 7, 8-year-old, whatever I said before, self just stumbled upon a game-breaking glitch should honestly be pretty telling about this game. But I mean, Mario 64 has weirdo glitches too, so how bad could it be, really? Oh, now I get it. When I heard that this was considered the worst Spyro game in my adulthood, I kinda assumed that just meant it was the least interesting or not as good as the others, the same way the worst Kirby game is just like the least good one, without actually being a bad game. But after going back over this game now, I gotta be honest with you, it's pretty fucking bad. And it's weird because I don't remember it being anywhere near that shitty as a kid, but I guess that's those rose-tinted glasses or whatever. The story is that Ripto stole all the dragonflies, which are the source of the dragon's power. Dragons' whatever. So Spyro cries like a little bitch, and then he meets up with his buddy Sparks, who is the only dragonfly they didn't get. As you figured out by now, the voice acting can be very annoying. There was this guy who... Wait a minute. That almost sounds like... No, hold on, hold the fuck on. It is! It's Tom Kenny. SpongeBob himself is all over this game. Hell, he's the voice of Spyro. In fact, he played Spyro in a lot of the games. Oh great, now I feel bad. Wait, Carolyn Lawrence? Sandy's in here too? The goal of the game is to hunt down all the dragonflies and capture them using bubble breath. Yeah, you can't just catch them, you gotta exhale on them very hard. It's kind of annoying because the hitbox for these bubbles isn't super clear and these fuckers are always trying to fly away from you. It's very fun, trust me. Spyro feels very unpolished at every single level. There are weird animation and sound bugs littered throughout the game, as well as certain areas that weren't adequately tested. My favorite thing was when this little dinosaur wanted me to get his kite from this tree. You're supposed to use the ice breath to freeze him, which you get later in the game. But instead, I just janked my way up there using the hover move. I didn't even have to look that up, I just looked at it and figured, oh yeah, this'll probably work. I hate these magic fuckers. The only way to kill them is to reflect their magic back at them with the wing shield, but it only works if you stand in a very specific spot and you rotate yourself in a very specific orientation. It's super annoying. The controls are weird. They feel extremely floaty and slippery. It's not easy to explain to someone who hasn't played it, but it doesn't feel great, especially the gliding. Sometimes I would press A and Spyro would just choose not to jump anyway. One time he started doing this. What the fuck is this? It gets especially bad in this part where you're hopping on platforms trying to shoot down these beehives because the camera is constantly doing some kind of cosmic fucking Tony Hawk move while you're trying to go back and forth between the platforms, and even worse, sometimes Spyro's shadow doesn't show up, which makes it very hard to tell if you're actually going to land on the platform. One time I lost all of my lives and I found out that the game didn't save any of the progress I made on the level I was on. My dumbass kinda just assumed the game autosaved whenever you got a dragonfly, but no, you have to manually save that shit. God damn it. One of the things this game has often been panned for is the performance issues. I'm playing the GameCube version and the frame rate is just all over the place, and I assume the PS2 version is just as bad, if not worse. Now, some of you might think it's stupid to look at an old game running on old hardware and criticize it for performance issues, but if you can get a game like Star Fox Adventures, which looks a billion times better than this game, running at 60 FPS on a GameCube a year before this game came out, there is no goddamn excuse. This is a rushed out, crusty ass piece of crap game, and it always was. Then there's the worst part of the game, the minigames. I don't even like minigames when they're inside of good games. They're a disjointed distraction from the actual game that I wanted to play. Unless the minigames are kept entirely separate from the main story, I don't want anything to do with them. So imagine what a minigame looks like in a game that's not even good to begin with. I hate these time attack minigames. You fly through 8 rings, kill 8 flying guys, destroy 8 stationary targets, then run around on the ground killing 8 walking things. What are these, fucking chocobo camels? These games give you just barely enough time to win. If you take too long on any of these parts, you're screwed. Which makes sense, but where it completely fucks you is the flying guys. Because the flying controls are fucking terrible, and if you miss one of these guys, it's a pain in the ass to get back into position. This is some Superman 64 bullshit. Then there are other minigames like this stupid ass tank minigame with the worst tank controls I have ever played in my life. But you want to know how to make that even worse? Put a time limit in there. Yeah, thanks guys. Great game. My favorite minigame was this slide thing.
The key to riding the slide is staying on the slide. Fuck off.
Monkey Man tells you how to play, then you do it, then he talks to you for a bit and gives you a Dragonfly. Then Sparks comes in and he says, he didn't tell you this, but if you play again, there's a bonus game that's a little harder. Now usually when there's a part 2 for a minigame, the guy running the game tells you that, but this time Sparks does. Maybe I'm overthinking this, but I honestly wonder if they forgot to give Monkey Man's voice actor dialogue for the second challenge, so they just made Sparks say it instead. If my suspicion is anywhere close to correct, that is hysterical. This tower climb minigame was the straw that broke the camel's back. The climbing controls are a nightmare. They're okay when you're just scaling a wall straight up during most of the game, but when you're scaling this tower and everything is falling down on you from every single angle, they're absolutely wretched. It's hard to describe it, but it feels like it takes 7 years to change direction, and going diagonally barely fucking works at all. These needles and these boulders are all falling down on you, and if you get hit once, you're going all the way back to the bottom, unless you fall in the lava and die. This part pissed me off so much that I almost quit. But I pushed through and I made it to the top. That's when I tried to talk to this guy to collect my reward. Now, just watch what happens. Fuck this game. Honestly, I don't have the vocabulary to describe how terrible this is. The worst part is even when the game is functioning properly, it just isn't that fun to play. The only real challenge in this game comes from grappling with the floaty controls and the shitty glide move and the general glitchiness. When this game is at its best, it's still just mediocre. That's all this game knows how to do. It's either terrible, or it's just boring. The most hilarious thing I read about this game came from the Wikipedia page. There's a quote from the composer, Stuart Copeland, that says, "I remember the team came in to create the promotional materials for Enter the Dragonfly. They showed me an ad that they had, which I didn't even recognize as Spyro. It was country and western themed, and I think that's where the divergence happened for me. We were not on the same page anymore." Now, when I read this, I laughed. I fucking laughed. Because it explained everything. It was priceless. Nobody even knew what this game was. Not even the people who were supposed to be making and promoting it. And that is beautiful. Spyro Enter the Dragonfly is unengaging, uninteresting, unpolished, and unfinished. This game is a joke, and it turned me into the Joker. Spyro deserves better, and so do you. In other words, this is garbage.